I'm Jeannie Alexander. I'm the director of No Exceptions Prison Collective. It's Christmas, and in Tennessee that means that there are thousands of families who are missing their loved ones. It's Christmas, and there are a lot of people in cages in Tennessee who shouldn't be in cages. People like Cyntoia Brown, who was a child sex slave, who was a victim of human trafficking, who killed a purchaser and has spent her entire adult life in a cage. But Cyntoia Brown isn't the only person in a cage in Tennessee who should be home with family, who should have a second chance. You see, in the state of Tennessee, when someone commits first-degree murder and they're found guilty of that crime, there are three options. There's life with possibility of parole, there's life without parole, and then there's a possibility of a death sentence. Now, the national average of life with parole is 25 years. Tennessee, however, is the only state in this country that has a 51-year life with possibility of parole sentence. People become aware of this, and they become aware of it because of Cyntoia's case. But at this moment, what we must do is understand the injustice of that sentence for everyone who is doing time. The reality is almost half of the people with that sentence in this state were juveniles or youthful offenders. The majority were youthful offenders between the ages of 18 and 25 when they caught their charge. We all understand the brain science, we've heard it. We know that the frontal lobe is not fully developed until 25 or 26. We know a lot of things. Those of us who have been working in this fight to end this unjust sentence so that people who are never supposed to have a life without parole sentence would actually have a shot at parole, not a guaranteed chance to get out, but just a shot. We understand the statistics. We understand the social science. We understand the brain science. There are things that so many people don't realize. So, for example, that those who are convicted of first-degree murder have the lowest rates of recidivism. They get out in around 25 years. These are not the people who go back. They also typically have very good disciplinary records while they're in prison. And why is that? It's because murder is a very particular crime. It is a very terrible crime. There is no doubt. None whatsoever. But people can be held accountable, and then they can go home again, if and when they are ready to return to their community. You see, we have a decision to make, and that decision is, are we going to practice retribution forever and continue building prisons? Or are we going to actually seek healing and reconciliation? For victims, for communities, for those who commit crime, for their families, are we going to take this next step and move away from this paradigm that's been choking the state with rising costs for corrections every year, and now we have over $1 billion budget? And with this 51-year life sentence, are we paying for additional safety? No, in fact, we're not. Those extra 26 years, we know there's no additional safety. So why do we have this situation? You know, what's driven this? People don't always like history lessons, so we'll be brief here. But in 1994, under the Clinton administration, the federal government enacted truth in sentencing laws. Basically, what this amounted to is that there were going to be mandatory minimums and the doubling of sentences for about 11 crimes. The federal government offered states money at the time if they would also enact a truth in sentencing law package as well, if they would enact these sentences in their state. Half of the states took the feds up on that, and they took their money, which, by the way, disappeared within 10 years. Tennessee is one of those states. And now we go from 95 to 2005 to 2015, or 23 years out after that. And our jails population is increasing. And we have a growing population, over 1,200 now, with this 51-year life sentence. It's not rational. It's not humane. It's not what judges and juries intend. Criminal trials are bifurcated in this state. And so when a jury determines that someone is guilty of first-degree murder and they will serve a life sentence, they won't understand that that life sentence is 51 years until the second phase of that trial. And then it's too late. This is madness. We are incarcerating those who after 25 years are the least likely to reoffend, and they are the most expensive to incarcerate. We are permanently breaking families apart, and this leads to the destruction of communities. We also know that this has a disproportionate impact on Black and brown communities. Tennessee has the 10th highest rate of incarceration in the world, proportionally speaking. Think about that, the 10th highest in the world. And the reality is, if we're talking about prison reform, if we're talking about sentencing reform, if the only thing we're talking about are nonviolent drug offenders, then we are not talking about ending mass incarceration. 15% of the prison population is not going to end mass incarceration. Do we need reform in that area? Absolutely. But let's be honest. It's time to be honest about the difference between people who are genuinely a threat to us and people who may have been a threat at one point in time, but are no longer, and they stay in a cage because we're mad. That's not a good enough reason. It's not good policy. And there are too many devastated families. Because the truth is, those people aren't coming home. They didn't get a death sentence. They didn't get life without parole. But everyone with that 51-year life sentence has a 98.5% chance of dying in prison. These are lives that have meaning. These are our brothers and our sisters. These are husbands. These are grandfathers. These are mothers. These are grandmothers. And they deserve a chance to come home. So yes, this Christmas season, free Cyntoia Brown. She should never have been in a cage to begin with. She was a victim. But don't stop there, because if that's where you stop, then you fail to see the systemic issues, and you have not seen the true injustice in this state. And Tennessee, make no mistake, is the battleground state to end mass incarceration. We're the home of core civic. We're the home of privatization of prisons. This is about money. This is about business. And it's about trafficking in human flesh. So don't stop with demanding justice for Cyntoia. Let this become something that fuels you. Get educated. Track us on our Facebook page, No Exceptions Prison Collective. We have 4 more trainings across the state in January. We have a training in Memphis, we have a training in Chattanooga, we have another training in Nashville, and we have a training in Johnson City. Learn how to become an effective community lobbyist. The legislature is the people's house. And for too long, it's been run by money and interest, by lobbyists, by people who only see numbers, whether it's a prison number or a profit number. And it's time to demand change. Work with us. We need you. 1,200 people in cages who should have a chance to go home need you. So on behalf of those individuals and all their family members, please believe with us that there should be no exceptions to justice.